draft, Residents Against Fracking Owego. We are the sponsor of this event, and we're against fracking, but we're also for a moratorium to at least have the towns prepare themselves in the event that this does occur. So I would like to introduce Vera Scroggins and Craig Stevens. Craig is being interviewed by the newspaper right now, so you won't be able to meet him. But Vera is going to be the first one to speak. Vera is from the Montrose-Dimmock area. She has experienced the Dimmock water contamination. They have both experienced the drilling mud spill into a Class 1 trout stream on Craig's property. And they are experiencing the water contamination in Franklin Township. And you can see many of the videotapes of these happenings that are done by Vera on YouTube. So I would like to thank Vera for coming and turn the presentation over to her.
Okay, see if this is loud enough. I'm going to take the mic off. I just want to say that I'm happy to be here. You have a beautiful state. I used to be a New Yorker. I used to live in Nassau County, Long Island, and I moved out of there with my family, about 21 years ago. And I'm surprised it's already 21 years, but I came with 3 children and a whole bunch of animals and a big truck. And we found the farm of our dreams. We wanted to be on a little farm, which I wanted to do since I was a little girl, because when I was a little girl, I lived on a farm with my uncles, my father's uncles, in Montana. So they had a ranch there. So I have this wonderful memory of a big, beautiful ranch, cattle, big open spaces, and you know what Montana is famous for. So that stayed with me, and then I had to move east. The mic is acting up a little bit. I don't hear the same sound, but...
Yeah, we're turning it down.
You're turning it down so it could be loud enough for people to hear?
You can hear it plenty.
Okay. Then we moved east because my mother's family was in New Jersey. So that was a big disappointment for my dad, and even for myself, but she wanted to be near her parents. So then I ended up growing up in New Jersey, Elizabeth of all places, which is very urban. It's right next to Newark. So I was not a happy camper. So I always dreamed of going back. Dreamed about going back to the farm, go back to the family farm if I had to, but something akin to it. Because anything with nature, like in Elizabeth, you're talking very urban, so you know how many trees are there. You can sort of count them on one hand. You know, you're walking along and you see a tree, wow. Meanwhile, concrete, trucks, the smells and odor of business, of industry, of diesel. So all of that was a negative for me. And we actually lived in different parts of Elizabeth over the years, and we were even near Linden. So if you know anything about Linden, this is an oil refinery area. So I was about a mile from there, so I would smell those odors on a regular basis. So I still feel like I have some kind of residual effects from that because of breathing, you know. And when I was a child, they didn't have asthma. We didn't know about asthma. We didn't go to doctors. You had a problem, you just live with it, unless it's maybe you're near death or something. So I have that memory of the refineries, and I don't want to live near that. So what happened here, we finally moved to the land of my dreams. I felt I was in heaven. We came to the Montrose area, Susquehanna County, and I saw the rolling hills, all that open space, low population. Our whole county has about 45,000 people. In Nassau County, that's 2 villages. They have maybe 1.6 million or more in the same amount, approximately, area, as far as land area, square miles. So when I came here, I said, wow, this is beautiful, this is great, I can relax, I can breathe clean air, and you can really smell a difference. If you're coming from an industrial area, even suburbia, then when I got married, I went to suburbia, that was an improvement. We went to Nassau County, and my husband was a teacher, a science teacher, and so that seemed to be better, but it wasn't still as good as the country. The country has its own beauty, its own special place. So I can breathe the clean air, and then we have our own water, no chlorinated water, fluoridated water. You have your nice water from your well. And it always tasted good to me, it seemed great. And then we can have all the animals we want, and the kids could just run around and do whatever they want. So I had 17 years of heaven. And then a friend of mine, in the Dimmock area, and you know Dimmock now, that's become world famous. She said to me, why don't you come and visit and see something here? They're talking about drilling. I said, drilling? What do you mean drilling? What kind of drilling? I had no concept of what she was talking about. No anticipation. She goes, yeah, they want to actually come and drill for gas. They said there's gas here. And they're bringing rigs in. It looks like oil. And I've been to Texas. I've seen the oil rigs. And so she took me, and I'm looking and seeing what they're doing. And I am, at that point, in shock, because I know what it means. I'm coming from a city area, so I know that when you have corporations, I was taught you don't trust a corporation, because they're out for profit. Number one, profit. That whatever they say to you, they just want to make the most money for themselves and for the stakeholders. So if they say to you, like they said to the people in Dimmock, some friends of mine that are there, I didn't live in Dimmock, I lived near it, they said to them, listen, it's not going to mean anything, it's no big deal. When we come in here, it's just going to be a little piece of metal you'll see. It's going to be like a little Christmas tree, we call it. And it might even be green. And it's going to be like a cross. It also looks like a cross, besides a Christmas tree. And that's all you're going to see. Everything else will be like it was. You're not going to even know we were there. We're going to come in, quick, we'll just do, they told the people in Dimmock, we're just going to do one well. There's 1,400 people in Dimmock. It's a little village. I'm sure you got little villages like that. It's 30 square miles. They said, you know, one and we're done, nothing to worry about, and you will be okay. We're not going to hurt you. So the people signed. And then when they started to come in, I knew at that point, this is going to be the end of whatever we had. And I'm going to feel a little bit emotional right now because this is painful for me. To see what I see happening is not an easy thing for me. It's a very painful thing for me. So excuse my tears at this point. But I'll try and get it together. So by the time they went in there and they started in this little village, it's now 4 years later. We are now 2012. Dimmock has 150 wells just in Dimmock. 30 square miles, we have 150 wells, and they're not even finished. They told them one, we're now up to 150. And they also have Cabot. You have heard of Cabot, you might have heard of them because they've had so many violations. You can go on the DEP site. This is our regulatory agency, which is similar to your DEC. You can go on their site on the computer, so if you're computer savvy, you can look up violations, compliance, and it's all for public review. So if you're interested in Cabot, you punch in, find the site, look for the violation list, and I do this regularly, and then you can print it out. And you can ask for a certain time period. Let's see, the past year, how many violations, what happened, what did they do? And it's all open for you to look at. So Cabot has been fined again and again. Cabot has had spills again and again. Cabot has consent orders, which implicated them and said that they were guilty. of contaminating at least 18 water wells in the Dimmock area, a whole area there. And they are still, even after everything else has happened, even to this point, they are still banned from 9 square miles. We have what I call ground zero, and that's Carter Road in Dimmock is ground zero for us. That's where it started. That's where the contamination started. And then 9 square miles around there, Cabot is still not allowed to drill or frack. So despite whatever the EPA says, whatever the DEP says now, they were found guilty over 2 years ago, and they were ordered to bring water for 2.5 years to these families on a daily basis. And I would go there and I would see them deliver water because you can no longer use your well water. You have to now have a water buffalo, which I don't know if you might know what it is, but it's a big plastic container like they use on a farm to feed their animals, to get the water for them. And it depends on the size of your family, depends on the size of the container. So like now we have some families, they have 7 people in the household, 1,100 gallon container, a white plastic, and they deliver and pour the water in there, and then there's a pump, and then that pump is got a piping into the house so you can get it into the household use. Now that water was just for household use because it's coming from Montrose. We have a municipal water treatment plant from our lake. So it's chlorinated, fluoridated water, and it's highly chlorinated. Like when I opened up that top of the water buffalo, it smells like a pool. So you know how a pool smells. So they have that delivered to them for 2.5 years. And then they had water for drinking in special bottles, you know, regular clean spring water or distilled or filtered water rather. And that was brought once a week in cases. So they had their water and they had to deal with that now for about 3 years or so, and then eventually it was stopped, and Cabot was told that, you know, Cabot said that they complied with everything. They were supposed to fix wells, gas wells, because you know one of the problems with gas wells is that they leak. That the cement work, one of the main violations is defective casings. The cement doesn't completely seal, there's little holes. So in those little holes, there can be leakage. And so they have gas migration that happens, and that goes into the water, into the aquifer, and then it ends up in some people's wells. Now it doesn't happen to everybody. It depends how the fissures are, the fractures are, and then the geology of your area. So some might get it, and some may not. Depends maybe if you're downhill from it. So if you do have a problem, it's not something you would want for anyone to go through. So these families have a difficult situation, and now it's throughout our county. We have cases now that are not just Dimmock. We have to the southeast of there. We have Southwestern, another company, another gas company, and they have a whole group of families there, about 10 families that are also, or a dozen, that also said their water changed. Now, this is what happens. Your water starts to change, and one of the changes might be you look in the toilet, and you look in there and you say, oh wow, something looks different. It's now a gray color. It wasn't gray before. And then you start to wonder, maybe something happened. Then you go and you open the faucet, and it starts to fizz. It spurts. There's a little spurting. There's some kind of gas situation there. And then you call for help. You might call the DEP, you might call a private water tester and say, you know, what's going on with my water? So we have problems. It's going from Dimmock, southwest corner, then going southeast to the Lenox area, then it's going north, and I live now in the northern part of the county with my oldest daughter and my 2 grandchildren. So it's going north, and it's in the Franklin Forks area. People started complaining in December after they drilled and fracked on both sides of them, about a mile on each side. And these 2 well sites, interestingly enough, when you look at the violations, which I did, they both have violations for defective casings. Defective, insufficient casing, and spills on the sites. So when you see that, there's a higher chance. And if you happen to possibly be downhill, higher chance of being contaminated. And that's what happened with this group. Now our latest group, several families on a main road there, and you can come and take a look at it, and you can visit it. It's under investigation right now. Our DEP is investigating the situation. It's several months. And this is what happens. If something happens, they investigate. It takes months and months. Right now, we're investigating those 2 wells before this mishap, before the families complained. And that was about a year now, over a year. The first effective casing near these families was in February of 2011. DEP is still investigating. I said, why do you take so long to investigate? They said, we want to make sure we have an ironclad conclusion. They don't want anyone to rip this conclusion apart. Because you know, if the gas companies are going to fight, and they have 1,000 lawyers, they'll have so many lawyers to fight whatever the government says, whatever the state says, whatever the DEP says. They will fight to the hardest that they can to make sure they're not implicated. They are in 34 states right now. You would think they would get it right at this point. How much longer do we have to wait for them to get it right? How much longer do they have to learn how to not have a defective casing, how to not have a spill, how to not somehow put our water at risk? They've been doing this for a while. So this is what's happening in our county, and now we have all these other cases, and what can I tell you? It's, do we want to risk our water? Is it worth it? Do we want to risk our air? Is it worth it so that people can have so-called money, so that 10%, from what I can see in our county and our state, it's about 10% who have large amounts of land who will make some large amounts of money. So for that 10%, should the 90% have to deal with all kinds of traffic? You're talking hundreds, like where Craig lives. He's in the same township as I am. And we're both on main roads, what we call like a main road, you know, state roads. So they're main arteries, east and west. And he gets like 300 trucks a day. Do we have to endure this so that some people can make money? And then they say, well, we need it. We're so poor. We're in such dire straits. I don't know how you or this county is. Are you so poor, in such dire straits, that you have to take this possible risk? And it's not just water. Then there's the air. Because they didn't tell us, and this is another thing that they did. They would tell us it's just going to be a wellhead. Then as we kept learning, this was a learning process, because I've never been exposed to something like this. In this kind of a way. I had to learn as I go, because I said, wow, you know, I gotta make a journal of this. So I started journaling, photographing, videotaping from the beginning. I wanted to keep a record. I wanted to have something. So I have over 100 videos on my website. You see the information up on the site here. And to let the world know what we've gone through, because later, if we have to go to court, or we have to fight this in the open, this is what I saw, this is what happened. So that they can't say, oh, it didn't happen, because it's here. It's not only in my videos, but in all kinds of newspaper articles, all kinds of news videos. Thank God for the media. You know, we have some media here right now. Thank them, because they do keep a record of what's going on. They've been very good about showing up, letting people know, writing about it, doing investigations. We have a great investigative journalist, a young woman, Laura Legier, in Scranton, and she's written a lot of excellent articles showing what we've been enduring for 4 years now. So we want to let the world know. I do tours every week for the past 3 years, and I want everyone to know. I get people from all over the world, different countries, legislators, council people, farmers, citizens. They come from all over, except our county. They come from out of the county. And I want them to know and see, look what this is doing to us. Do you want this? So you're welcome to come and see for yourself. And it's a different experience when you actually see it. You can hear me talk, you can hear him talk. It's not the same until you actually see it. You have to use your senses, smell, sight, hearing, and then you get a real feel for this. Because they don't mind putting this type, industrializing the whole county. Our whole county does not have zoning, basically, except for maybe some of the boroughs. But outside of the boroughs, the little, the regulated cities or towns, I guess a town. Out in the country, no zoning, basically. That means they can do what they want. They can put these things anywhere, and they have a setback. Your setbacks, from what I read about, are even worse than ours. I heard from the supplemental, environmental, whatever review you have, it's like a 100-foot setback. I mean, that's outrageous. We have like 300, I thought that was outrageous, and now they just upped it to 500, which still, what's 500 feet? When you live out in the country, 500 feet is like nothing. So we have sites where they drill and they frack. For about a year is the activity. They also tell you it's going to be over with quickly. It's not. It goes for a year or more. By the time they finish all the wells, they do the excavating, they start drilling, and then that's not always smooth. There could be a problem. Then they have to put one well, then a second well. Now they're putting like 4 wells or so, 4 to 5 on a site. Takes a while. Then they have to frack them. Then they have to flare them. Flaring is, burning off excess gas, and you'll see this fire in the sky. It sounds like a jet plane. So this is right near homes. Now we have it near like 300 feet from homes. And now they're trying to go a little bit farther, so they're putting them on maybe a half a mile on an access road, and they go through the woods. So it's like behind your house. I don't know if I want to live next to that. I mean, I've talked to the people who live near it. The noise, the diesel smells, the lights, they light up everything. So it looks like you're in France somewhere. You think this is the Eiffel Tower? Where am I? Is it America or am I in France? So they like that, then the noise, then the traffic, and then the dust. And the emissions. Once they're done, you think it's over, but it's not. Because once they're done, supposedly they put it on production, they connect, then they got to put in the pipelines. Now a lot of areas don't even have enough pipelines, including our county. They have to dig up all over, making like a web, 100-foot swatches, in the valley, up the hills, through the wetlands, through the creeks. We have a lovely creek near us in Silver Lake Township. Took them a month and a half to get through the creek. They didn't expect this because they kept having drill mud blowouts. The drilling mud would come out of the creek bed, and I filmed this, and it would just spurt out and gush out of the creek bed. And then they had to suck it up. They had to take like a hose, vacuum it up, and then they could drill again. It took them a month and a half just to get through this little creek. And it's a special creek. Like we have creeks of different levels that has exceptional value. We have a whole watershed that has exceptional value, has certain type of fish and trout, and it has extra value, extra cleanness. So now we have this extra sediment. It doesn't look the same. The water doesn't look like clear like it used to. And this is now, the last time they drilled was in September, so we're now up to almost a year later. And they were fined, believe me, they were fined by the fishing boat. For the effects on several creeks. So once you have pipelines, they start digging all around. Then you have that invasion and destruction. And then you need compressor stations. And then it still doesn't end. It never seems to end. As soon as we hear about one thing, then they say, well, now what we need? Compressor stations. We got all these sites here. They got to connect to the pipelines. Now we need these compressor stations to compress the gas, dehydrate some of it, and push it through quickly through the pipelines. So you got all these lateral pipelines from the gas well, then to the gathering line, to the compressor station, then to the transmission lines, and then out of state. So they got all this going on. So, now it's compressor station. How many do you need? I was an intervener on the one pipeline, laser pipeline, right? Laser pipeline, you can intervene. If you're a citizen, you can just intervene. I don't need a lawyer, you can just write. I'm concerned, I wrote a little note, I'm worried it's coming through my neighborhood. And then we went to court, and we held them off for a year and a half. which I was glad about. And it cost them like 60 million because they couldn't build when they wanted to build. So when I asked them during court time, I said, well, how many compressor stations are you going to need over this 21 miles? 21 miles across the northern part of our county, and then it's going to go into New York. Your New York, the Millennium Line. And they said, none. Believe me, we won't need any. And I asked them several times, none. So what happens after it's all done? Now we got 4 being built. 4 of them along this line, so it's every 2 to 4 miles they want a compressor station. And you should see what those look like. They're like a whole industrial looking thing with compressors, several compressors, noise, 24/7. And what else besides noise? Emissions. They don't tell you about that. So then you learn about that. So what happens? Emissions, 24/7. And our lovely DEP, and I'm sure your DEC also, allows a certain amount of emissions. And what are they? Tons of emissions are allowed per year. And what are they? Volatile organics, BTEXs like benzene, toluene, xylene, all the gases, formaldehydes, sulfur dioxides. They said, you know, we have allowable limits. Don't worry. I said, really? Do I want to breathe any of this? Did I come here to live in the country so I can breathe tons of emissions from just one compressor station, and they're building now every 2 to 4 miles? Another one. So they're I'm supposed to feel comfortable about this. Because listen, I talked to a gas person today. He was WPX is a gas company. And I talked to the gas people also. I want to have like a working relationship with them. So I talked to this one public relations man who was there in Montrose today, and we've been talking to each other. And he says, you know, we do everything within the law. We're within the regulations. I said, I understand that, but maybe your regulations are not adequate. Maybe these regulations are not something I want. So we need to relook at these regulations. Are these regulations what you want? Do you want this near your homes? Do you want this near your schools? Like here's a picture, I don't know what you can see, but we have them on our school property. The schools are all leased. And they actually put wells on the school property. This is behind a playground, the elementary school. We have our schools all together, you know, they're like all grades, 0 to 12 is one big complex. We have like 5 complexes in the county. So they got wells right there. Do I want this near my children? Do I want then the pipelines, which are under high pressure, moving the gas around? It's right near the schools and right coming from those wells. And then all the emissions. When you go to a drill site, there's constant, like a hum, machinery hum. And then the emissions are also at every gas site. They have all that, the BTEXs, the volatile organics, they're all coming also from that, besides the compressor stations. So all of this is pumping into the air. Our air quality, when I go through Dimmock, I can smell the difference. It is no longer like the other villages, or like it was. So I'm here to just warn you and let you know what is happening to us. And at this point, you can come and look at it and see for yourselves and see if you want this. And I hope that New York stands fast. You have done a miracle at this point. No state in the Union has resisted for this long. No state has been able to keep them out who think that they can do whatever they want because they're exempt from all kinds of laws. No other company in our country has all these exemptions. Clean water, clean air, all these exemptions, but they can just do differently than any other company. You have performed a miracle here. 4 years you've kept them out. Congratulate yourselves. I am impressed. No other state has done this at this point, because they want to come in here and you've kept them out. So I hope you can continue to do it and that you won't let them in, because once they're in, how do you get rid of them? It won't be easy. And those of us who are looking for new places to live in, because I now have a site, I live on a lake, Laurel Lake community with my family. They put in a drill site now just above the lake, 2,500 feet from the lake. So from our house, 3,000 feet, it's being drilled right now. And this is the same company that has defective casing violations on 2 townships that border our townships and is under investigation for their violations and for the possible contamination now of a whole new group of homes, which is the next township to us. So you know that I don't feel too confident about them. And I warned my township people, I said, don't let them in. Can we do something? Look at their record. 20 pages, I hold it up, violations. These people have had problems. They still can't get it right. And this is the same company, if you've watched the movie Truthland, the farmer in Truthland, which has been making the rounds in New York and Pennsylvania and West Virginia, and the capital also of our United States. The farmer there, Shelley Depew, lives near me and is actually a neighbor of Craig's, 1 mile, 4 miles from me. And she goes around, she has 4 wells. Gas wells on her property. She's got like a 200-acre farm, something like that, dairy. She goes around and saying to everybody, nothing to worry about, everything's fine, it's all under control, they've got all the bases covered. Meanwhile, her well is under investigation. Her well has the defective casings, plus the spill violations. She doesn't mention that in the movie. She doesn't mention it when she comes and she talks on stage, and she's with a whole panel that promotes this. So we've mentioned it to her and brought it up in the audience and said, you know, what about your defective casings? What about your violations and your investigation? She goes around and parades this, and it's funded by the gas companies. I asked at a meeting in Deposit, who funds this movie? And there was a pro-gas landowners group that was sponsoring this movie. I said, who are the gas companies? Why does it just say in the movie, gas company sponsored? Why don't you reveal what gas companies? Oh, we don't know. Why isn't that even revealed? Well, that to me is important. Who is actually putting the money for this? They're paying for this to be created. 34 minutes to show that there's nothing to worry about, folks. Don't worry about anything. They've got it all covered. There's never a problem. Nothing's been proven. That's how they talk. And they will never admit guilt. Never. And this is how they work in every state of the 34 states of our country. But now New York is going to be their Waterloo. New York is going to stop them and has stopped them. And I hope at some point it'll squash the whole thing, because it's a worldwide industry. It's basically profit-making off the backs of all of us. So then we have to clean it up. Just like in Endicott and near us, Bendix, every state has all these industries that have come in, and we have to clean up. And does it ever get cleaned up? I've never seen a place that got cleaned up completely. So it'll be for you to pay for me to pay for generations to come. And you think you're making money now, but you're going to have to pay for the cleanup for generations. So whatever money you make, all you landowners who feel you're going to make money because you really need it, supposedly, you really need it, I would suggest banking at least 50%, because the lawsuits that will be coming in, which they will come after you. Your name is on the gas site. Besides the gas company can morph, change their name, their LLCs. They can become who knows what. You won't be able to get them as easily as the landowner. And they will come after you, because at every gas site in our county, when you look at the sign at the entrance, is the name of the owner. And you see that name, and then you know who to sue. When they mess up your water, your air, your peace of mind. So this is what I'll say at this point. I wish you well. I would like to have a place to run to. So please keep New York free of gas, and of drilling and fracking, because at some point I might have to become a New Yorker again. Thank you very much.